And to discuss the situation in the Holy Land and in a broader context, the relations between Iran and Israel lately, we're joined by Marcin Styszyński from the Institute of Oriental Studies at the Adam Mickiewicz University. Good evening.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us. So, Israel braces for a retaliatory attack from Iran after it managed to kill some 6 top commanders in an airstrike in Syria. And let me start with a quote. "Our brave men will punish the Zionist regime, and we warn that no act by an enemy against our holy system will go unanswered, and the art of the Iranian nation is to break the power of empires." That's by General Hossein Salami, the commander-in-chief of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Now, are these just empty threats, or is Iran forced now to react to Israeli attack?
It's a good question, especially that, as you said, we just passed 6 months, and the symbolic value of this conflict is very important, especially in the Arab-Muslim war, including Iran. Just yesterday, we had celebration of Quds Day or Jerusalem Day, announced in the past by Khomeini during the Iranian Revolution in '79. So these symbolic threats are important, especially locally. And so far, it's true that Iran and other groups implemented or exploited this war rhetoric against Israel, especially locally. Not only Iran, but for instance, Hezbollah and its leader Nasrallah, for instance, also yesterday, and etc. But this time we have a completely different context, because we have this tragic conflict between Gaza Strip and Israel. So it's completely different. And of course, the context, as you mentioned, the death of 2 representatives, high top commanders of Revolutionary Guards during the attack against Iranian consulate in Damascus this Monday. So the question is if Iran now will start any direct involvement or direct hits against Israel and Western interests, or it will still exploit proxy war like it did before, and like it is happening so far.
Right. Now, I'd like to reverse the question, because it's not whether Israel will use the hands of its proxies, whether Houthis, exactly, Hezbollah, exactly, or whomever, but when it will happen and where, because we are not certain that it will take place in Israel. It may also be an attack on a diplomatic outpost of Israel.
Of course. Right. Of course, you're absolutely right. Of course, we are talking about any Israeli and Western interests in the whole world. Of course, we are talking about embassies or any enterprises and etc. But the question is, of course, when. We should remember that we are approaching to the end of the holy month of Ramadan in the Arab-Muslim world. So it could be next week. It could be during the celebrations of the end of the Ramadan and etc. So, as you said, it could be done on the basis of drones or any explosives and etc. However, we should also remember that Iranian forces are on high alert since yesterday. So that's the question, if we will have any direct involvements between Iran and Israel, or it will be still on the basis on escalation of proxy war on the basis of Hezbollah in Lebanon or Houthi in Yemen, and etc. But also, to be optimistic, we should remember that some negotiations and peace talks just started in Cairo there is a visit of CIA chief also in Cairo. So that's maybe it will be a kind of de-escalation. However, we should remember that Iran is excluded from these negotiations. But however, there is any quite optimistic points anyway.
Right, that's the optimistic scenario. However, the general I mentioned in the very beginning, General Salami, spoke about breaking the power of empires. Now, that's an interesting choice of words, because you can hardly describe Israel as an empire. On the other hand, the United States is very much of an empire. Now, should Americans also worry about a possible retaliation from Iran?
Yes, of course, that's a second question, because at the same manifesto or expression, Iranian side warned the U.S. To not involve to the ongoing conflict between Israel and Iran itself. But of course, it's hard to for the American side to not be involved in this conflict. But however, Iran tries to place the U.S. far away from this revenge between Tehran and Tel Aviv, I think. But we also should remember that it's still rhetoric, and always this rhetoric, political and war rhetoric, existed for a long time in the region. Just to remember, we had the death of Qasim Soleimani in Baghdad. It also was an important commander in the Revolutionary Guards in 2020. So also we heard the same rhetoric, the same threats, but still it's worth mentioning that now we have this conflict between Gaza, so this could escalate and it could be a political fuel for both sides of the conflict.
Of course, but the question remains whether Tehran can afford any sort of escalation in its conflict with Israel.
Yes, it could. Just to remember that Iran supports now Russia with any military equipment during the conflict in Ukraine. Just to remember, most of missiles are Iranian made.
Yeah, the infamous Shahed drones, right?
Of course, drones and missiles, everything. So, and it's a huge country. A neighboring huge country, and always there is also one point we always forget in the West, because so far we had this conflict between Gulf states and Iran. It was the main proxy war. But we should remember that since 2022, actually, we have this peace negotiations and peace pact between Iran and Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states. So it means that the proxy war between the Gulf states and Iran just ended. So now we have the only one enemy in the region, and it's Israel. Of course, the Gulf states are far away, and they don't want to be involved in this conflict. But however, they don't also break any actions or operations against Israel, because, for instance, Houthi are still attacks with missiles at the Red Sea, and we don't see any reactions or strong reactions from the Gulf states, for instance. So Israel sits in the weak position, I think, now in the region, especially. Of course, still it has support from Western sides and Western countries, but in the region it's quite complicated, I think.
Oh, it is. It is complicated. It has been complicated for the last several decades. Our guest was Marcin Styszyński from the Institute of Oriental Studies at the Adam Mickiewicz University. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you once again for the invitation.
Thank you.